Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 18 of the series of tutorial on how to build a premium theme for WordPress. Welcome again. In this tutorial we're going to take a look on how to style our navigation bar and how to apply all the style that we need, or the source code that we need to properly handle all the different scenarios that a user can have while he builds its own navigation bar. So let's get started. Let's access our front end and let's take a look at what we are right now. So we have our menu, but it's completely styled in a different way. So what we have to do, we have to just use SASS to style our nav bar in a proper way. Access our text editor, let's access our SASS file, and before starting coding our style, always remember to access the terminal or the command line and point to the folder of your theme, that in my case is sunset theme, and then use the usual code SASS -- watch your SASS folder, column your CSS folder where you want your file to be generated, and then if you want you can add a specific style. In my case I decided to create a compressed style to have a minified version of the CSS, and hit enter. In this way our SASS engine, our SASS source code, will be constantly checked and our CSS file will be automatically updated. Let's create another comment here for the nav bar. And then let's code the nav bar dash sunset. That is the class that I put inside here, inside the nav HTML5 container. So the nav sunset, now we have to specify a little bit of style to override the style of bootstrap. I applied a default style to my navigation container because I like how bootstrap organizes everything and takes care of all the rollover status, all the standard CSS and HTML stuff. But now I want to override this style and put my own custom style. So first of all, I want to input a text align center. Then let's check the front end here and let's open the inspector. Let's select our source code here and let's check the navbar, what kind of style. So I don't want any border radius, so I have to exclude the border radius. I don't want any margin bottom, I don't want any border, and I can remove also the min height. So I'm gonna override all these different attributes. So border none, border radius 0, min height auto, and margin bottom 0. Save it. Let's go back here, refresh, and our style, as you can see now, is overriding the bootstrap default style. Now we can style a little bit the link to reflect the exact style that we decided in our style file. So we have all capitalized, all uppercase, white with a specific font size. Home, we have 12 pixel, railway, semi-bold. By taking a look at the source code in the inspector, we see that here Bootstrap has a logic of indenting and referring the container and parent and the actual element. So in order to style the A link, the A tag inside our navbar, we have to use this same exact logic. In our case though, we can use SASS to simplify all these styles. So we can use le, open, and then we can use A, open, and here we can use text transform uppercase, color white, and font size 12 pixels. Save it. Let's go back here, refresh, and now of course our style is overriding the style of Bootstrap. Now we have to center align this text to the center and use a little bit of CSS style, a CSS trick to do that. So first of all, we have to remove the float left of our statement of our menu here. So let's grab this statement here, and because it's referring the live in the sans navbar, we can write the code inside the live here. So float none. Let's save it. Let's refresh here, and now everything is collapsed. But now, of course, everything is collapsed and it's not really working. Also, the UL container is floating left, but we can also override this stuff. So let's create another indentation here, UL, and we can put float known. Let's refresh. Now it's not floating, but everything is center aligned, and because the li is acting as a display block, is panning 100%, so it's not really working. What we could do, we could change, instead of display block, we could change display inline block and force these settings to be center aligned and span only for the actual width of the container. So let's go here, and inside our li element, put display inline block. Save it, refresh, and now we have our menu center aligned, and it doesn't matter how many elements we have inside the menu, automatically this menu is going to be automatically center aligned because we have a container with a text aligned center. We remove the floating options to the UL container and li container, and we display the li containers as the list containers, the li containers, as a display inline block. This is a little trick that I figured out while I was trying to center align a floating menu and make it like looking good without using like a margin left 50% and removing floating or removing like the half of the width to the left. It was like super tricky to properly center align. With this code, you can actually, for real, center align element and center align single menu element. So now let's keep styling, and let's take a look at the source file here. We have this background bar that is a white background at 10% of opacity. If we go to 100%, we see it's just white background. And we have, if I'm not wrong, a border top of the same. So a border top of 1 pixel that goes 100%, that it's still white, but 10%. So the two sum, we have a border top of 20% of opacity of a white background. So let's do that. Let's go back in our text editor, the navbar sunset. We have a background color of RGBA to specify RGB and then alpha value, and it's to specify white is 255, 255, 255 is completely white, and then the for variable for value is the opacity, so we want to put a 0.10. Let's save it, and now we can put semicolon and then border top 1 pixel solid, and also here we can copy paste the RGBA value that we specified here. Maybe if we put yes, this one is way better. Make him RGB value of the background, and also here we have border top. Let's refresh it, and now we have the proper style like we did in our design file. Let's keep going with the styling. The default value of a link is opacity 0.7 and letter spacing of 0.05 emphasis. Let's save it. Plus I want a background none, and also here I want ampersand hover and comma ampersand focus, semicolon focus, and ampersand visited to be background still none, but I want the opacity to be 1, Save it. Let's go back in the front end, refresh. Now we have this stuff. So now we can create a little bit of style to animate these opacity and this transition here. And to do that, I want to use a mixing because I want to animate the opacity, but I have to create a sort of animation transition for something else. So let's use a mixing here. Let's scroll back up and we can create another section here. And we can call this section mixins. And we can create the @mixin animate, and we can specify two variables inside the mixin. The first one is attribute to be animated, and the second one is the time that I wanted to apply to the animation. And here we can write all the different derivation, the animation style. So let's write with animate. So after this, I can go back in my standard SASS with the declaration of the link and define and including the mixing to animate whatever I want to animate. So for now, I want to just animate the opacity. So I can write @include the name of the mixing, that in my case it's animate. And here I can specify the opacity and the timing that I want to be 320 milliseconds. And let's specify S. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end, refresh it. And now we have, as you can see, it doesn't jump anymore. We have our small, nice transition and animation. And it's really smooth. It's really nice to see. Now the other thing that we have is this bottom bar that it appears only when you go on rollover or you're selecting that specific page, like you're navigating that specific page. To do that, to animate this, we have to use another little bit of CSS trick to make a smooth transition and not affect too much the computing, the use of the CPU of our machine. To do that, we have to use the CSS3 transform options to avoid to move a real object, but just updating the transform option to simulate the animation in a way smoother way. So let's create first of all the current status, the standard status of that bar. So we want to put another attribute here that is ampersand semicolon after, and I want to define a content that has to be empty with a double quote. Then I have to define a position absolute. Then I have to define a display block, and then I want left 0, right 0, bottom 0, and height 2 pixel. Background I want to be white, and let's save it. Let's go back in our front end, refresh it. And now, as you can see, this style has been applied to all these old links. We have this bottom bar, but it's not properly styled. So what we have to do, we have to limit this bar to the actual link, and we don't have to put it to bottom 0. Let's update a little bit the style, and let's put the left to 15 pixel. That is the padding amount of our context area, and then here we can put 10 pixel. Let's go take a look, refresh. Now it's better aligned. We can of course select this element in the inspector as usual and live update whatever thing we want. So now it's at 14 pixels. We like it that way. Let's put it bottom 14 pixels and let's save it. This element, of course, is gonna inherit all this style that we have. So we have the opacity and we have the transition of our top bar. But the thing that I want to do, actually, I want to animate. I want this to be hidden at the beginning and maybe to be like a little bit transitioned on top, and then when I go and roll over this little line, I want to animate and scroll down or grow. Like, let's try a little bit of animation. In order to do a smooth animation, the first thing you have to create and set as a default style the last style, the last statement, how it is at the end of the animation. Then you can update the transform option with the transition option to animate the style in the previous state. So don't start with the initial state, but start by coding the final state where you want your bar to be. Look at it, where you want your element to be, how you want your element to look at the end of the transitions. And now we can update a little bit this style and change the code. So first of all, let's go into this part with the hover, focus, and visited, and let's create another indentation, and let's use the ampersand after here. So first of all, here, this opacity, I want to start from 0. And then here I want to put opacity 1. Let's copy the include mixing and let's apply the animate mixing to this part. And let's put all, opacity 0. And now we have to create another mixing to animate the translate Y option, to animate from top to bottom. So I have to create a little bit of code at mixing. So I created this transform mixin where I have all the derivation for the different browser to apply a whatever transform value I want to apply. So here I could put translate X, translate Y, translate Z, translate 3D, and update automatically all these different derivation for the different browser with just one code. So let's do here. Let's go scroll back down here inside the after container, not the rollover status, but the current normal status. And let's include also in this case the transform mixin. And here we can write translate Y. Let's take a look what happens if we put a translate Y of minus 10 pixel. And then we include this mixin here to put a translate Y of 0. So we are going to revert back the current position of our bar. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh and see now we have this nice smooth transition. So I kind of like it. It's not too bad, but probably if we do the other way around, so instead of going negative, we go positive, so from bottom to top, the transition is gonna be better. Oh yes, I like it way better. Don't you like it? Of course, I could change stuff around if I want. And for example, I could do it live because I have just one value. So if I want, I can put like just 5 pixels to have a less intrusive and more smooth animation. But probably I could put it at 6 pixels. Yeah, pretty smooth. I don't know. I could say that I like it at 10. Don't you think? Yes, I like it at 10. It's way better. It's more obvious. And of course, you can do pretty much whatever you want. You can shrink it down to the left by using scale. You can make it appear with rotation. You can change also the height of this value here. You can scale down in Y position. You can do pretty much whatever animation you want. And it's pretty smooth. It's pretty good, right? Now what we have to do, we have to apply, this bar has to be visible and constantly active if we are in the current page. So by default already WordPress is applying a class, a custom class called current menu item when we are in that specific page, but I don't want to use this class to style it because I'm using Bootstrap, and Bootstrap has an active or current status class, and I want to use that because I'm using the class. But the problem is that this menu is not generating the HTML markup of Bootstrap as it's supposed to be. So what I have to do, I have to use the Walker nav class to extend and dynamically change the generation of the menu. And if you don't know what the Walker Nav class is, I suggest you to, as usual, take a look at the WordPress 101 for beginner developer, and where I did a couple of lessons really detailed about the Walker Nav class. For now, I'm gonna use that exact same code to update and change my source code. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open the inc folder and create another file called simply walker.php. And of course, I'm going to include and require this file here in my functions.php. So include, duplicate the require code and include the Walker file. Save it inside here. Let's open another function and let's copy the first part. Let's open the Walker file that I just created, paste it here, package sunset, and let's use Walker nav class, and here I'm gonna copy paste the exact same source code of the Walker nav class that I generated in my WordPress 101 for beginner developer series. I don't need a functions end level and end element, so I can remove it. And here I can change the name of this Walker nav class by putting, of course, sunset at the beginning. So sunset Walker nav primary. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh it and check if everything works. We don't have any PHP error. We don't have any PHP trigger error. So that's good. Now we have to access the header.php and force the menu to use the Walker nav class. In order to do that, of course, we have to implement an attribute inside our array of argument, and we put a comma after the menu class, and we specify inside single quote the Walker, and we point the Walker to my new. We have to specify new because it is a class, so we have to create a new instance of that class, and we put the name of our custom Walker that we created. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh it. And of course, as usual here, nothing changed. Absolutely for you, everything like in the front end, everything looks exactly the same. But what changed actually was the source code, because in our Walker nav class that we coded before, we implemented a check for the drop-down menu, and we implemented the custom class in the case we have our current status. We are visiting that specific page, and the custom class is active. So now I can use this unique custom class for the active menu item to style whatever I want. And of course, if I check the source code, I will see, because I'm in the home page, this menu item here, as you can see, we have the active class. If I change the page and I reaccess the source code, of course, the Lee container of the home doesn't have active anymore, but here the Lee container of the about link has the active. So now I can style that code. And the cool thing about SASS is that I'm not forced to rewrite this entire code, this entire structure, because I can use the indentation of SASS to specify if the Lee element has a specific class, I'm gonna change bunch of stuff around. So if the Lee, let's go down here, ampersand dot active, so it means that if the Lee has a class applied to itself that is active, I want the A in this case to have opacity 1, and inside here I want the after element to be translate y 0 and opacity 1. So I'm preventing, thanks to SASS, we are avoiding to rewrite this entire structure, and we are keeping all tied all together inside the navbar sunset. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. And because we are in the about page here, the about is selected. And of course, even if we're in rollover, nothing happened. We don't have the animation because we specified in SASS also the status in a rollover. So let's click here. And as you can see here, everything remains nice and tidy as we want. So now let's take a look what happens if a user adds a submenu element. Let's access the menus section and let's add, for example, another about page, but here inside, indent inside the about me. Save option. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. And of course, because we use the Walker Nav class, we have the drop down area. And of course, now if we click on the about, it's gonna open the drop down. Of course, it's completely ugly and it's not really working. So let's style this also a little bit with the bootstrap pre-built class. So first of all, we have an open status here on our menu, on our lead container, that is applying these background, the white background that I don't really like. It's really super ugly. So what we could do, we could duplicate, copy the style and apply our new stuff. So we could override also this style with our open tag, with our bootstrap tab. So let's access the SASS again, and we know that Lee is the open class has been applied to the Lee element. So here we can do exactly the same. We put inside the Lee opening tag here, the Lee opening brackets, let's put ampersand dot open, and here we can pretty much copy paste these exact same code, but we have to change something a little bit. So first of all, I want a background color to be a black, to be dark instead of white, but with the same 10% of opacity that I kind of like it for my menu. So let's specify RGBA as usual, and let's put 0,00 to specify black, and then 0.1 for the 10%. Let's save it. And here the bar, I want to actually hide the bar in the case that the drop down menu is open. I don't really like to see the bar in the drop down menu container, so let's put 10 pixel again to revert back the position, the original position, and opacity 0 to just hide the bar. Plus we have to respecify this hover part because Bootstrap has another class. So in the case we have the open container and the A, Bootstrap specifies again the A element with rollover, focus, visited, and we have to create another status here, another effect bar. So we can copy paste all these stuff. Let's open here and we go and roll over. Now we see we have a little bit of style and kind of like it. Of course, we can always change it. You can apply your own style. So also for today's lesson is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. If you like it, of course, give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you have a couple of minutes, please take a look at the support me page where you can find all different ways to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better video and better tutorials for you. Of course, if you have questions, doubts, just leave a comment below. I will try to answer to everyone. And if something is not clear, of course, this lesson was a little bit more technical and I skipped a lot of part about the SASS code here, how to create a properly structured SASS file and how to create a properly structured Walker Nav class. I suggest you constantly to check all the videos that I did previously, the WordPress 101 for beginner developers and the AliCAD crash course to check how to use the Walker Nav class and the SASS structure to create an awesome theme like we're doing right now. So thank you again guys, and as usual, until the next lesson, happy coding.